The NBA is a league with many ways to honor players. One of them is retiring a jersey number worn by a particular player. This is a huge honor because it essentially makes a player immortal within the franchise. However, not every NBA team is eager to do this. The teams with the most retired jersey numbers are the Boston Celtics and Los Angeles Lakers. The reason is simple. They have had so much success that there is a long list of players who deserve such recognition. On the other hand, there are teams like the Los Angeles Clippers who have never retired a number, or 5 other teams that have retired only one jersey. Since the Golden State Warriors retired number 9 for Andre Iguodala about a week ago, I decided to take a look at a list of players whose numbers, in my opinion, should be retired, but haven't been yet. For simplicity, I will only consider players who have already retired from the NBA. However, some teams don't need additional jersey retirements, because in my opinion, their list of honored players is already sufficient. A prime example are the Brooklyn Nets, who are the successors of the New Jersey Nets and New York Nets, who played in the ABA. Some of the well-known players they have honored in this way include Jason Kidd, Vince Carter, Julius Erving and Dražen Petrovic. I also have no ideas for additional retirements for the next 19 teams. That's quite a long list, but it's the reality. If you think there is someone from these teams who should be honored in this way, let me know in the comments. Now, let's move on to the first team that has never retired a single number, the Los Angeles Clippers. In their case, I can understand why they haven't done it before. For a long time, they had no real success. In their 55-year history as the Los Angeles Clippers, San Diego Clippers and Buffalo Braves, they have reached the conference finals only once, in 2021. However, there are 2 names in their history that in my opinion qualify for jersey retirement. The first is Bob McAdoo, a 6'9" center who played only 5 seasons for the Buffalo Braves. But what incredible seasons they were. He was Rookie of the Year, then won 3 consecutive NBA scoring titles, earned an MVP award, finished second in MVP voting twice, made 4 All-Star appearances, and led his team to 3 straight playoff appearances. After he left the franchise, the Clippers had to relocate, first to San Diego, then to Los Angeles, and they didn't return to the playoffs until 1992, 16 years later. McAdoo is the 3rd leading scorer in franchise history, 5th in rebounds and 5th in blocks, despite the fact that blocks were not officially recorded in his rookie season. McAdoo wore number 11. It should be retired. The second name is much more familiar to us, as this player played his last NBA game less than 2 years ago. Of course, I'm talking about Blake Griffin, the player with whom the Clippers had their longest streak of consecutive playoff appearances. They made the playoffs 6 years in a row with him. The fact that they never made it past the 2nd round wasn't entirely his fault. After all, someone else hired Vinny Del Negro and then Doc Rivers as head coaches. Griffin showed that the Clippers could be fun. The Lob City era with him, DeAndre Jordan and Chris Paul made the Clippers cool to watch. Griffin ranks high in several franchise statistical categories. He is 2nd in points, 3rd in rebounds and 5th in assists. He was a 5-time All-Star, won Rookie of the Year and earned multiple accolades. Beyond them, the team should also seriously consider honoring Randy Smith, Elton Brand, and once they retire, DeAndre Jordan and Chris Paul. Charlotte Hornets have only retired 1 number in their history, and it's a tragic story. In 2000, Bobby Fields died in a car accident, and to honor his memory, the Hornets retired his number 13. Other than him, no player has received that honor. I had a tough time deciding for the Hornets because on one hand, I wanted to honor someone from the 1990s, but all the leaders of those teams, Alonzo Mourning, Larry Johnson and Glenn Rice, either played too briefly, or like Mourning and Johnson, left the franchise on bad terms. So I chose the smallest guy, but also the face of those Hornets teams, Maxi Bogues. Bogues was the franchise leader in assists and steals, and no one is even close to surpassing him. He is 2nd in games played and minutes logged. He had 2 seasons averaging over 10 assists per game, and regularly led the NBA in assists to turnover and steals to turnover ratios. He may not have been a big scorer, but he definitely deserves this honor. My second candidate is Kemba Walker. He played 8 seasons for the Hornets and is the only player in franchise history to score over 10,000 points. He is the franchise leader in field goals made, 3-pointers made and free throws made. He ranks second in assists and third in steals. He was a 3-time All-Star. He absolutely deserves to be honored. Minnesota Timberwolves are in a similar situation to the Hornets, as they have also retired just one number in honor of Malik Sealy, who tragically passed away. No one has worn number 2 for the Wolves since 2000, and that likely won't change until the franchise is sold and Glenn Taylor no longer has any authority. Because there is no more obvious case for jersey retirement than Kevin Garnett. In Garnett's case, it's an absolute obligation for the team. KG is the Timberwolves. Until 2018, every playoff appearance in franchise history was tied to him. In the first 28 years of the franchise, they made the playoffs only when Garnett was on the roster. He holds almost every meaningful statistical record for the Wolves. The last team with just one retired jersey number is the Toronto Raptors. So far, they have only honored Vince Carter, and they did so this season. I understand why they chose him first. The second player will probably be Kyle Lowry once he retires, but I have another candidate in mind, Chris Bosh. Bosh is the franchise's all-time leader in rebounds and blocks. He is one of just 3 players, along with DeMar DeRozan and Kyle Lowry, to score over 10,000 points for the Raptors. Yes, he left Toronto to join LeBron and Wade in Miami, but his case should still be considered. The Orlando Magic have retired only 2 numbers, Shaquille O'Neal's number 32 and number 6 to honor their fans. But 2 more players deserve this recognition. The first is Dwight Howard, who hasn't officially retired but is unlikely to return to the NBA. He is the franchise leader in points, rebounds, blocks and minutes played. Like Shaq, he led the team to the NBA Finals and even won 1 game. The second player is Penny Hardaway. He may not rank as highly in the all-time stats, but Penny and Shaq were an inseparable duo. Without one, the other wouldn't have had the same impact. They reached the finals just 6 years after the franchise was founded. Penny must be honored, it's only fair. In January 2024, the Chicago Bulls introduced something called the Ring of Honor. It includes all the players whose jerseys numbers were retired, along with several other key figures in the franchise's history. Among them are Tony Kukoc, Chet Walker, Artis Gilmore, Dennis Rodman, former team owner Dick Klein, and legendary assistant coach Tex Winter. But one of them truly deserves the additional honor of having his jersey retired. Of course, I'm talking about Dennis Rodman. Believe me, I'm well aware of the bad blood between Rodman and the Bulls back when he played for Detroit. But there is no way the Bulls win 3 championships without the Worm. His performance in the 1996 finals was particularly outstanding. I still remember Game 6, when he grabbed 11 offensive rebounds, converted crucial and-ones, and halted the Sonics' comeback. Dennis should be honored. The second player will be honored next year, Derrick Rose. This one was obvious. He is a Chicago native, the youngest MVP in NBA history, and the player who took the Bulls the furthest since the Jordan era. The Dallas Mavericks have retired the numbers of 4 players: Derek Harper, Brad Davis, Rolando Blackman and Dirk Nowitzki. It seemed like Luka Doncic would be the next natural candidate, but honestly, we are more likely to see his jersey hanging in the rafters of the Los Angeles Lakers arena someday. So who could the Mavericks honor instead? In the 1980s, the Mavericks were led to success by Rolando Blackman, Derek Harper and Mark Aguirre. But Aguirre left the team in 1989 after being traded to the Detroit Pistons, where he won 2 championships and became a legend. However, his time in Dallas was exceptional. He was a 3-time All-Star, averaged 29.5 points per game in his best season, and remains the 3rd leading scorer in franchise history, only behind Nowitzki and Blackman. Over his 8 seasons with the Mavericks, he averaged 24.6 points per game, a mark only surpassed by Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving. He was also the team's first ever number 1 draft pick in 1981, just a year after they joined the league. It was Aguirre who led the team to the Western Conference Finals in 1988. After he left, the Mavericks made the playoffs only once in 1990, and then had to wait 11 years for Dirk Nowitzki's rise. It's strange to me that he hasn't received this honor yet. Earl Monroe, Elvin Hayes, Gus Johnson, Wes Unseld and Phil Chenier. These are the players whose numbers have been retired by Washington Bullets and Wizards. But in reality, all of them played during the team's earlier eras as the Baltimore, Capitol and later Washington Bullets. The last of them retired in 1981. That means it has been over 40 years since a Wizards player was last honored in this way. In those 40 plus years, the Bullets and Wizards have only advanced past the first round of the playoffs 4 times, but 3 of those times were with John Wall. Wall was their number 1 draft pick in 2010, a 5-time All-Star and the Wizards' all-time leader in assists and steals, as well as their 4th leading scorer. The Wizards need to refresh their image, and it's time they honored someone from a more recent era. After their glory days in the 1970s, the best thing that happened to them was the John Wall era. The Denver Nuggets have already honored 6 players in their history, and the most obvious next candidate would be Carmelo Anthony. However, the problem with Melo is that he wanted to leave the team. He only took them as far as the conference finals, and on top of that, Nikola Jokic currently wears the same number. So I would be cautious here. But if they were to retire the jersey of a player who has already finished his career, Melo would be the first choice. The Detroit Pistons are one of the most successful franchises in NBA history. Their 3 championships put them in 6th place, tied with the Miami Heat and Philadelphia 76ers. They have retired several jersey numbers, but I think Grant Hill also deserves recognition. Yes, the Pistons never made it past the first round of the playoffs with him. And yes, he left for the Orlando Magic at what should have been the prime of his career. But at the same time, he was the bridge between the 2 championship eras. He played alongside Joe Dumars, the last remaining member of the first Bad Boys title team, and when he left for Orlando in a sign and trade deal, he helped bring in Ben Wallace, who became a key part of their next championship squad. And finally, the Seattle SuperSonics. Until the Sonics return to the NBA, I don't want to see Gary Payton's jersey retired. Theoretically, the Oklahoma City Thunder, who are technically the Sonics' successors, could do it, but I don't want that to happen, because Payton has nothing to do with OKC. But the moment the Sonics return, and I believe they will, they should immediately retire Payton's jersey. He is the franchise's all-time leader in points, assists, steals, games played, minutes and countless other categories. His number 20 needs to hang in the rafters of an arena in Seattle as soon as possible. That's all for today. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it to the end. See you next time with another video. Take care.